Live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, it's time to talk everything Yonkers and Westchester. This is On the Level with Hezi Aris. Hezi Aris is the editor and publisher of the Westchester Times-Tribune. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now, On the Level, here's Hezi Aris.
Good morning. Welcome to the show, and I want to thank you for the introduction. That's really terrific. Today we have a very interesting show. I thought we were going to have someone different because things were turning around so quickly in politics that I had Dan Schorr, who's running for district attorney. I had him scheduled, I think, over a month and a half ago, and then all of a sudden, all sorts of stuff hit the fan in Yonkers because of budget restraints and constraints. So I didn't know if the mayor was going to be on this week, and then we would have to displace you, which would not have been nice. And thank God for that. So the mayor, I guess he was very nice, or it just worked out coincidentally. He'll be on next week. So we'll speak to Mayor Amicone then, and we'll hopefully talk about the budget. But today we're here to talk about Dan Schorr, who's running for Westchester County District Attorney. Tell us a little bit about you, because I know nothing about you, but you seem to be out there. You're fundraising. You're getting started early, which I think is terrific. You seem to be making all the right moves, which is nice because I hate these campaigns that are only like a month or a month and a half long after a lethargic summer. And so it's great. We will have an opportunity to learn who you are. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thanks. Well, Hezi, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm a prosecutor first and foremost as a career. I live in White Plains. I've been a longtime resident of White Plains, and I went to law school to become a prosecutor because I think the biggest calling in law is to protect people from criminals. And while I was living in Westchester, I started my career as a prosecutor in the Queens DA's office, specializing in domestic violence, sex crimes, and child abuse. I also did homicide investigations and trials. Then I came up to Westchester to work, although I was already living here, and I was in Janine Pirro's domestic violence, sex crimes, and child abuse bureaus. Tried a lot of cases up here. I've worked with every department in the county. And then in 2005, I spent a year in China teaching Chinese judges and lawyers about legal reform. One of the most fascinating experiences of my life.
How so?
China is a different world from what we have here. It's a closed system in terms of the legal community. There aren't the same due process rights that we have here. People don't have a right to an attorney or a right to an open trial. People are summarily arrested, and they're trying to reform their system to make it more open and fair. They have a long, long way to go, and the State Department had a grant where they had some lawyers from America train Chinese judges and lawyers about ideas of legal reform. And I spent a year doing that, traveling all over China and Asia. And I really got not only a perspective on the Chinese system, but it gave me a different perspective viewing the American system, having seen such a foreign system. And it really gave me a new appreciation for how great the American justice system is, where we have two lawyers, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, an adversarial system, due process rights, and an adjudication by a jury of one's peers.
That's really terrific. How did you, what causes you to think about running for the district attorney's office?
Well, first of all, I always thought that being a prosecutor, that the district attorney had a great ability to help people's lives. The district attorney chooses what priorities to initiate in terms of prosecution, what resources you work with the community to prevent crime. You really are the person in charge of keeping Westchester safe, which is, to me, the most important role of government, is to keep us safe. So I always thought it was a very important job that I might be interested in one day. And we have a current district attorney where, as of a couple of years ago, there were a lot of problems starting, a lot of mismanagement. We've had about 25% of the assistant district attorneys resign in the last couple of years. We have police departments who are very frustrated that the criminals they arrest are then released very quickly on probation or not prosecuted at all.
Did you find that this was particularly troublesome in this particular administration?
It is. Since Janet DeFiore took over, there's been a problem with the relationship with the police. Right now, the police have no confidence in the district attorney because they are making arrests. They are taking violent criminals off the street, and they're just being released back on the street. The biggest example I could give you of this is Detective Sergeant Stephen Bernura in Pleasantville, who it's been pretty high profile. He said what many other people were saying to me privately. He said to the Journal News, "We keep arresting people for burglary, and the DA's office promises to keep them in jail, and they just released," and he mentioned one person in particular that keeps being released over and over again. And instead of the district attorney addressing this and responding to it, he was suspended the next day, and he's suspended now 6 months later without pay. It's a terrible way to treat someone who's been a long-time public servant. This detective sergeant had worked for over 20 years. I actually worked with him very closely on an attempted murder case that I tried, where the defendant was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison. So I know he's a good detective sergeant. He's saying what a lot of other people have been saying to me in the police department, all police departments around the county, that they feel the DA's office doesn't respect the police, doesn't work with them. And I would ask any listener at home, if you want to know how the district attorney is doing, ask anyone in your local police department. Ask your local police officer, your local police detective, what do you think of the district attorney's office? And they'll hear for themselves the problems that I'd like to address.
Okay. I couldn't refute that with you, so I'll have to just accept what you're saying as true, and as real, because I'm not as familiar on the subject matter. So that's then, if this is the case, as you pointed out, what can you do should you become elected into office as the district attorney? What could you do to change that dynamic that you paint?
There's several things I'm going to do to change the district attorney's office and therefore make the community more safe. First of all, I'm going to repair the relationship with the police departments. The police departments don't feel that they have a partner in the district attorney's office, and that's really important. When I was
Why don't they feel they have a partner in the district attorney?
One reason is that they feel defendants are released that they feel should stay in jail. The other thing is they feel that when they contact the district attorney's office, they're often given the runaround. They're transferred from one assistant DA to another assistant DA. I've heard this from crime victims also. One of the problems in the structure of the district attorney's office right now is we have a system of kind of an assembly line where you have a bunch of prosecutors who handle an arrest. Then you'll have grand jury assistants who will indict that case later. Then they'll hand it over to a trial attorney later on. And the problem with this is twofold. First of all, victims have to repeat their story to one prosecutor after another. And especially in an emotional crime, the type of crimes I prosecuted, sex crimes, domestic violence, it's very traumatizing to have to keep telling someone new about this. The second problem is that as a prosecutor, a good trial attorney wants to be in on the ground level when the case is first when the crime is made. You want to be there at the crime scene if possible. You know what witnesses to talk to, what evidence to secure. When I was doing homicide investigations in the Queens DA's office, I would go out in the middle of the night to murder scenes all over Queens. I would drive from Westchester, and it gave me a better understanding of the layout of the crime scene, what evidence needed to be enhanced. Right now, there are problems in the prosecution of cases in Westchester because we have this staggered approach where different prosecutors handle different parts of the case, and you don't have one person working with the police. You have a better relationship with the police when you have ownership of a case. You get to know that police officer, that department. I think
you think that's an endemic issue?
It's
at the department.
It's a major problem with the police because they don't have.
But major meaning with some individual police, or is that a systemic problem?
It's a systemic problem around the county that the police departments are frustrated trying to contact assistant DAs that they want to work with. It's also with crime victims. Also, I have a friend who unfortunately was recently a victim of a misdemeanor sex crime in Westchester, and she told me that before the case finally pled out right before trial, she had to go through 4 different assistant district attorneys. And I also hear this from defense attorneys a lot, that they go to local court and they want to work out some kind of disposition or go to trial on a case, and they have a different assistant district attorney every single time they go to court. And it slows down the system of justice. It makes it less efficient, and it makes it harder for victims and police officers to have a relationship with the prosecutors. That's one thing I'd like to change.